Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. We are continuing with our Srimad Bhagavatam, second canto, second chapter study. Let's begin with the prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naranchaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udidayet Ashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtuke Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namah Mujnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Gurave Gaurachandraya, Radhikaye Tadalaye, Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya, Tadbhaktaya Namo Namaha. Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim, Yatkripatamaham Mande, Shri Gurun Dinatarinam, Paramananda Madhavam, Shri Krishna Chaitanyamishwaram, Harihi Om Tatsat. Hare Krishna. So we are starting Canto 2, Chapter 2, entitled The Lord in the Heart. This chapter has got 37 verses. Let's begin our study. Chapter 2, The Lord in the Heart. Text 1. Shri Shuka Vacha Evam Pura Dharanayatmayonir Nashtam Smritim Pratyavruddya Tushtat Tata Sasarjedam Amoga Drishtir Yata Pyayat Pragyavasaya Buddhi. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Srila Shukadeva Goswami said, formerly, prior to the manifestation of the cosmos, Lord Brahma, by meditating on the Virat Rupa, regained his lost consciousness by appeasing the Lord. Thus, he was able to rebuild the creation as it was before. So, Prabhupada explains in the purport how Brahmaji also had forgetfulness. He was not understanding why he was actually created in the first place by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then he had to undergo, he just heard the word tapa. And when he did tapasya for thousands of years, then he understood the real purpose of his creation, that he had to do secondary creation. And Prabhupada mentions how this forgetfulness is right from Brahma until the ant. A Brahma Bhuvana Loka Punar Avartino Arjuna. So from Brahma to the lowest ant in the world, when one comes to this material world, one becomes forgetful, right? Forgetfulness, one of the qualities of a jiva in this material world. And Prabhupada quotes 13.14, where he asserts that the Lord has his hands, eyes, and mouth in every nook and corner of the creation. That means that the expansions of differentiated parts and parcels called jivas or living entities are assisting hands of the Lord, and all of them are meant for rendering a particular pattern of service to the Lord. The conditioned soul, even in the position of a Brahma, forgets this by the influence of the illusory material energy generated out of false egoism. One can counteract such false egoism by invoking God consciousness. Liberation means getting out of the slumber of forgetfulness and becoming situated in the loving devotional service under the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna. Liberation is never inaction, but service without human mistakes. So Prabhupada actually always translates bhakti into devotional service. So we need to render service under the lotus feet of the Lord for the pleasure of the Lord. Text 2. Shabdasya hi brahmana esha panta Yannama Vidhyayati Dhira Parthai Paribramam Statra Vindate Arthan Maya Maye Vasanaya Shayanaha. The way of presentation of the Vedic sounds is so bewildering that it directs the intelligence of the people to meaningless things like the heavenly kingdoms. The conditioned souls hover in dreams of such heavenly illusory pleasures, but actually they do not relish any tangible happiness in such places. In the purport, Prabhupada actually talks about 8.16 of the Bhagavad Gita. It talks about that there are innumerable universes, and all the innumerable universes have innumerable planets in them. but none of them is immune to the chief miseries, namely Janma, Mrityu, Jaya, Jara, Vyadi, Dukkha, Doshano, Darshanam. And what to talk of even Brahmaloka or Satyaloka? It is not a happy land for residential purposes due to the presence of material pangs, as mentioned above, namely Janma, Mrityu, Jara, and Vyadi. Indirectly, Sri Shukadeva Goswami affirms that Maharaja Parikshit, in the last stage of life, should not desire to transfer himself to the so-called heavenly planets. He should prepare himself for going back home, back to Godhead. None of the material planets, nor the amenities available there for living conditions, is everlasting. Therefore, one must have a factual reluctance to enjoy such temporary happiness as they afford. So here it is mentioned about how it is very important. What is the kind of desire we have? Right? Even when we perform devotional service, if we have material desires, maybe our material desires will get fulfilled, and maybe that is all that we will get. Right? So that is like how Dhruv Maharaj is telling that I was asking for pieces of broken glass, but when I got the darshan of the Supreme Lord, it is like I got diamond, although I had asked only for pieces of broken glass. So similarly, when we pray to the Lord, we should not be praying for broken glasses. Material desires are like broken glasses. However, if we desire to serve the Lord like a friend, like a servant, like a beloved, then we will get much, much more than what we can even imagine. Because the Lord is a source of everything. Ishwaraha Paramakrishna Sachidananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govindaha Sarva Karana Karanam. The Lord will benedict us with the best of the things which we cannot even imagine. So we should not ask anything from the Lord except pure devotional service. Text 3. Atah kavirna masuyavadartah syada pramatto vyavasaya buddhi siddhe anyatarte nayateta tatra parishramam tatra samikshana manah. For this reason, the enlightened person should endeavor only for the minimum necessities of life while in the world of names. He should be intelligently fixed and never endeavor for unwanted things. Being competent to perceive practically that all such endeavors are merely hard labor for nothing. Purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The Bhagavata Dharma or the cult of Srimad Bhagavatam is perfectly distinct from the way of fruitive activities, which are considered by the devotees to be merely a waste of time. The whole universe, or for that matter, all material existence, is but moving on as Jagat, simply for planning business to make one's position more comfortable or secure. Although everyone sees that this existence is neither comfortable nor secure and can never become comfortable or secure at any stage of development. It is but a jugglery of names only. Right? The creation of the matter is due to earth, water, fire, air, ether. They are all produced by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Since the devotee of the Lord knows them perfectly well, he is not interested in creating unwanted situations, which is not at all reality, but simply names of no more than the babble of sea waves. The great kings, leaders, and soldiers fight with one another in order to perpetuate their names in history. They are forgotten in due course of time, and they make a place for another era in history. But the devotee realizes how much history and historical persons are useless products of flickering time. The fruitive worker aspires after a big fortune in the matter of wealth, woman, and worldly adoration. But those who are fixed in perfect reality are not at all interested in such false things. Therefore, the transcendentalist desiring freedom from the clutches of Maya or illusory activities of life is warned herewith not to be captivated by the external features of fruitive actors. Human life is never meant for sense gratification, but for self-realization. Our material bodies and our material lives in that connection are bad bargains, because the living entity is actually spirit, and spiritual advancement of the living entity is absolutely necessary. The transcendentalist is especially warned herewith to be fixed in mind, so that even if there is a difficulty in plain living and high thinking, he will not budge even an inch from his stark determination. Shukadeva Goswami met Maharaja Parikshit when the latter felt a necessity for such a meeting. It is a duty of a transcendentalist to help persons who desire real salvation and to support the cause of salvation. One might note that Shukadeva Goswami never met Parikshit while he was ruling as a great king. For a transcendentalist, the mode of activities is explained in the next shloka. So here it is mentioned what was the reason why Shukadeva Goswami met Parikshit Maharaj. Right? Shukadeva Goswami did not meet Parikshit Maharaj for any kind of personal favor because Parikshit Maharaj was the king. No. Shukadeva Goswami met Parikshit Maharaj at the juncture where Parikshit Maharaj was sitting on the banks of the Ganges, and he was destined to die in 7 days. So Shukadeva Goswami came to give Krishna to Parikshit Maharaj, to give the knowledge about Krishna to Parikshit Maharaj. Thereby Parikshit Maharaj will benefit. So the sadhus visit grahasthas, visit common people, not to take benefit from them, but to actually benefit them by giving Krishna to them. Hare Krishna. Now we go into text number 4. Satyam chitau kim kashipo prayasait bahau swasiddhehi upabharnaikim satyanjalau kim purudhana patriya digval kaladhau satikim dukulai. When there are ample earthly flags to lie on, what is the necessity of cots and beds? When one can use his own arms, what is the necessity of a pillow? When one can use the palms of his hands, what is the necessity of varieties of utensils? When there is ample covering or the skins of the trees, what is the necessity of clothing? In the purport, Prabhupada actually talks about how one can rest without any pillow, how one's life has to be so simple. But and Krishna consciousness is very simple for the simple-minded. But then an intelligent human being, he cannot live the life of an animal. So he should use his intelligence not in just making better clothes, better shelter places, etc., but to actually make a progressive march of human civilization by understanding who's Krishna, one's relationship with Krishna, and the Sambandha Gyan, the Abhidheya Gyan, and the Prayojana Gyan. In the system of Sanatana Dharma, of 4 divisions of social life and progressive orders of progressive realization, there are ample opportunities and sufficient directions for happy termination of the progressive life. And the sincere followers are advised herein to accept a voluntary life of renunciation in order to achieve the desired goal of life. If one is not accustomed to abiding by the life of renunciation and self-abnegation from the beginning, one should try to get into the habit at a later stage as recommended by Shukadeva Goswami, and that will help one to achieve the desired success. Next 5. Chirani kim patina santirishati viksham naivan gripa parabhrata saritopya shushyan वृद्धा गुहा किमजितो अवतीनोपशन्नान् कस्मात् भजन्ति कवयो धनदुर्मधान्धान्. Are there no torn clothes lying on the common road? Do the trees which exist for maintaining others no longer give alms in charity? Do the rivers being dried up no longer supply water to the thirsty? Are the caves of the mountains now closed? Or above all, does the Almighty Lord not protect the fully surrendered souls? Why then do the learned sages go to flatter those who are intoxicated by hard-earned wealth? Prabhupada is talking about how the renounced order of life is never meant for begging or living at the cost of others. The renounced order is meant to enlighten the householders about the duty of the human form of life, about the goal of the human form of life. They don't go to the common people asking for roti kapda makan. No, that is not the need of the transcendentalist, because the Lord provides for all of his devotees. Amongst other duties of the renounced order of life, Sri Sanatana, Rupa Goswami, and other Goswamis of Vrindavan, the foremost duty is to hold learned discourses amongst themselves at Cheva Kunj, Vrindavan, the spot where Sri Radha Damodar temple was established by Sri Jiva Goswami, and where the Samadhi tombs of Rupa Goswami and Jiva Goswami are laid. So, the important thing for a renounced order of life is to simply go around propagating the message of Krishna consciousness all over the world. Shukadeva Goswami gave this warning especially for those mendicants who adopt this line of profession to solve their economic problems. Such mendicants are in abundance in the age of Kali. When a man becomes a mendicant willfully or by circumstances, there must be a firm faith and conviction that the Supreme Lord is a maintainer of all living beings everywhere in the universe. So one need not worry about getting a small loin cloth or getting a glass of water or getting something to eat, etc. Because the Lord is a provider of everybody. Prabhupada quotes Haridas Thakur here. Haridas Thakur, a great devotee of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, used to live in a cave, and by chance a great venomous snake was a co-partner of the cave. Some admirer of Thakur Haridas, who had to visit Thakur every day, feared the snake and suggested that the Thakur leave that place. Because his devotees were afraid of the snake, they were regularly visiting the cave. Thakur Haridas agreed to the proposal and moved his place. But as soon as this was settled, the snake actually crawled out of its cave in the cave before everyone left the cave for good. By the dictation of the Lord, who also lived within the heart of the snake gave preference to Haridas and decided to leave the place and not disturb him. This is a tangible example of how the Lord gives protection to a bona fide devotee like Thakur Haridas. According to the rules and regulations of the Sanatana Dharma, one is trained from the beginning to depend on the full protection of the Lord, the Avashya Krishna. The path of renunciation is recommended for acceptance by one who is fully accomplished and fully purified in his existence. The stage is also described in Bhagavad Gita as Daivi Sampat. A human being is required to accumulate Daivi Sampat or spiritual assets. Otherwise, the next alternative is Asuri Sampat, or material assets will overcome him disproportionately, and one will be forced into the entanglement of the material miseries of this material world. The Lord is residing in everyone's heart, and unless one is purified by the prescribed process, one will feel that he is alone. But a man of the renounced order of life must be purified by the process. Thus, he will feel the presence of the Lord everywhere and will have nothing to fear, such as being without any company. Everyone can become a fearless and honest person if his very existence is purified by discharging the prescribed duty for each and every order of life. One can become fixed in one's prescribed duty by faithful oral reception of Vedic instructions and assimilation of the essence of Vedic knowledge by devotional service to the Lord. Text 6. Evam swachitte swata eva siddha atma priyo artho bhagavan anantah tam nirvrato niyatartho bhajeta samsara hetu paramaschayatra. Thus, being fixed, one must render service unto the super soul situated in one's own heart by its omnipotency. Because he is the ultimate, almighty personality of Godhead, eternal, unlimited. He is the ultimate goal of life. And by worshipping him, one can end the cause of the conditioned state of existence. Purport. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 18.61, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is the all-pervading, omnipresent Supersoul. Therefore, one who is a yogi can worship him because he is a substance and not illusion. Every living creature is engaging in the service of something else. A living being's constitutional position is to render service, but in the atmosphere of Maya or illusion, the conditioned soul seeks the service of illusion. A conditioned soul works in the service of his temporary body, bodily relatives, and the necessary paraphernalia for maintaining the body and bodily relations, such as the house, land, wealth, society, and country. But it does not know that all such renderings of service are totally illusory. As we discussed many times before, this material world is itself an illusion, like a mirage in the desert. In the desert, there is an illusion of water. And the foolish animals become entrapped by such an illusion and run after water in the desert, although there is no water at all. But because there is no water in the desert, it does not conclude that there is no water at all. Every one of us is searching after real happiness in life, namely eternal life, eternal knowledge, unending blissful life. But foolish people who have no knowledge of the substance search after the reality of life in the illusion. Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi. This is called samsara, repetition of birth, death, disease, and old age is a real problem. One has to find a solution to these problems of the life, but we do not know the way. Prabhupada talks about 18.61. Now, if at all want to end the cause of our conditioned life, we must take to the worship of Lord Krishna, who is present in everyone's heart. Sarvasya chaham hridhi sannivishto, 15.15. Hridaye Arjuna Tishtati, 18.61, where Krishna says, I am situated in everyone's heart. We must therefore extricate ourselves from all illusory connections of the world and seek reunion with the Lord, trying to render service unto him, because he is the ultimate truth. Actually, we are hankering after him as the child seeks the mother. Such holy places of worship and are also occupied by the Lord, because the Lord is omnipresent. For the common man, these holy places are centers of learning about the signs of God. When the temples are devoid of activities, the people in general become uninterested in such places, and consequently, the mass of people become godless. And a godless civilization is the result. Such a hellish civilization artificially increases the conditions of life, and existence becomes intolerable for everyone. If you want to end all this and normally of a godless civilization, we must follow the principles of revealed scriptures like the Srimad Bhagavatam and follow the instructions of a person like Sri Shukadeva Goswami, who has no attraction for material gain. Text number 7. Rastam Tvanadritya Paranuchintam Rite Pashuna Sati Nama Kuryat Pashan Janam Patitamaitaranyam Swakarmajan Paritapan Jushanam. Who else but the gross materialists will neglect such transcendental thought and take to the non-permanent names only, seeing the mass of people fallen in the river of suffering as a consequence of accruing the result of their own work. But Srila Prabhupada mentions about how the mind cannot be still even for a moment. No one can remain vacant of thought. They said idle brain is a devil's workshop. But a person who cannot think in the right way must think of something which may bring about disaster. The materialists are always worshipping some minor demigods, and all this is condemned in Bhagavad Gita 7.20. As long as a person is illusioned by material gains, he petitions the demigods for some particular benefit. And that's what Krishna tells in Bhagavad Gita. Kamesha Krodesha Rajoguna Samadbhava Mahashano Mahapapma Vidyena Miha Vairanam. So the only reason why people worship demigods is because of Kamesha. Right? It is only because of the lusty desires. Text 8. Kechit Swadehantar Hridayavakashe Pradesha Matram Purusham Vashantam Chaturbhujam Kunjaratanga Shanka Gadadharam Dharanaya Smaranti. Others conceive of the personality of Godhead residing within the body in the region of the heart and measuring only 8 inches, with 4 hands carrying a lotus, a wheel of a chariot, a conch shell, and a club, respectively. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Prabhupada explains how the form of the Lord is described in this verse. The distribution of the various symbols, beginning from the lower right hand up and down to the lower left hand with lotus, wheel of a chariot, conch shell, and club, respectively, is called Janardana, or the plenary portion of the Lord who controls the general mass. According to the positions of Shankha, Chakra, Gada, and Padma, the Lord is known by various names. It's Purushottama, Achyuta, Narasimha, Trivikrama, Rishikesha, Keshava, Madhava, Aniruddha, Pradyumna, Sankarshana, Sridhara, Vasudeva, Damodara, Janardana, Narayana, Hari, Padmanabha, Vamana, Madhusudana, Govinda, Krishna, Vishnumurti, Adokshaja, and Upendra. The young Lord with 4 hands is nicely decorated as described below. Prasannavaktram Narinayatikshanam Tadam Bakinjalkapishangavasasam Lasan Maharatna Hiranmayangadam Sfuran Maharatna Kirita Kundalam. His mouth expresses his happiness, his eyes spread like the petals of a lotus, and his garments, yellowish like the saffron of a kadamba flower, are bedecked with valuable jewels. His ornaments are all made of gold, set with jewels, and he wears a golden headdress and earrings. Text number 10. Unnidra Hrit Pankaja Karnikalaye Yogeshwarasthapada Pallavam Sri Lakshanam Kaustubaratna Gandaram Amlana Lakshmya Manamala Yachitam. His lotus feet are placed over the whorls of the lotus-like hearts of great mystics. On his chest is the Kaustuba jewel, engraved with a beautiful calf. There are other jewels on his shoulders. His complete torso is garlanded with fresh flowers. The ornaments, flowers, clothing, and all the decorations from the transcendental body of the Lord are all identical with the body of the Lord. None of them are made up of material ingredients. Otherwise, there will be no chance of their decorating the body of the Lord. As such, in the Paravyoma, spiritual varieties are also distinguished from the material variegatedness. विभूषितं मे कलयाङ्गुलीयकयत् महाधनेर्नूपुरकङ्कणादिभिः स्निग्धामलाकुञ्चितनीलकुण्टलयत् Virochamananahashapeshalam. He is well decorated with an ornamental wreath about his waist and rings studded with valuable jewels on his fingers. His leglets, his bangles, his oiled hair, curling with a bluish tint, and his beautiful smiling face are all very pleasing. Prabhupada talks about Venum Kwananta Maravinda Dalaya Daksham. Right? The Lord is very, very beautiful. He's the most beautiful person amongst all others. Shukadeva Goswami describes every part of his transcendental body one after another in order to teach the impersonalist that the personality of Godhead is not an imagination by the devotee for facility of worship, but is the supreme personality of Godhead. The impersonal feature of the absolute truth is but his radiation, as the sun rays are but radiations from the sun. Text number 12. Adina Leela Hasitekshanolasa Brubhanga Samshuchiti Buryanugraham Iksheta Chinta Mayamenam Ishwaram Yavan Manodharana Yavatishtate. The Lord's magnanimous pastimes and the glowing glancing of his smiling face are all indications of his extensive benedictions. One must therefore concentrate on this transcendental form of the Lord as long as the mind can be fixed on him by meditation. Prabhupada quotes 12.5, Klesho adhikatarastesham avyakta sakta chetasam avyakta hi gatir dukkam devadbir avapyate. Right? So it is very, very difficult to realize the Lord through his impersonal feature, especially for a person who is embodied. So the best way is to render Lord's personal service. Such a person can progress very easily. Very difficult to realize the Lord through the impersonalist method. Very easy to realize the Lord simply by engaging in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. And Prabhupada also talks about Shuddhyati Vishayalampatyam Tyajati Tata Tata Dharayed Iti Chitta Shuddhi Taratamyenaiva Dhyana Taratamyam Uktam. As one gets free from the intoxication of sex indulgence with purification of intelligence, one should step forward for the next meditation. Or in other words, the progress of meditation on the different limbs of the transcendental body of the Lord should be enhanced in proportion to the process of purification of the heart. The conclusion is that those who are still entrapped by sex indulgence should never progress to meditation above the feet of the Lord. Therefore, recital of Srimad Bhagavatam by them should be restricted to the first and the second cantos of the great literature. One must complete the purificatory process by assimilating the contents of the first 9 cantos. Then only one should be admitted into the realm of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Text number 13. Ekaikashongani diyanubhavayet padadiyavad dashitam gadabhritah jitam jitam sthanamapoya dharayet param param shuddhyati dhiryatha yatha. The process of meditation should begin from the lotus feet of the Lord, progressing to his smiling face. The meditation should be concentrated upon the feet, the calves, the thighs, and higher and higher and higher, one limb after another. So in this way, one should take darshan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. And those who are too much engrossed in sense gratification are not allowed to participate in Archana or touch the transcendental forms of Radha Krishna or Vishnu deities. Text number 14. यावन्न जायेत परावरेऽस्मिन् विश्वेश्वरे द्रष्टरि भक्तियोग तावत् स्थवीय पुरुषस्य रूपं क्रियावसाने प्रयत स्मरेत. Unless the gross materialist develops a sense of loving service unto the Supreme Lord, the seer of both the transcendental and material worlds, he should remember or meditate upon the universal form of the Lord at the end of his prescribed duties. And Prabhupada mentions in the purport 5.29, Bhuktar Mignatapsam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. The Supreme Lord is the supreme well-wisher, benefactor, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He also mentions about how we are all parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead who live with him in the transcendental world, but are now in this conditioned life of material existence because of our envy towards the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. So Prabhupada is talking about the natural position of the living entity is to render service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And one is advised to meditate upon the Virat Rupa form specified in the previous chapter in order to understand how the different planets, seas, mountains, rivers, birds, beasts, human beings, demigods, and all that we can conceive are but different parts and parcels of the Lord's Virat Rupa. Without such meditation on God, either personal or impersonal, all good qualities of the human being become covered with misconceptions regarding his constitutional position. And without such advanced knowledge, the whole world becomes a hell for the human being. Stiram sukham cha shanamastito yathir yada jihasurimamangalokam kale cha deshe cha mano na sajjayet prana niyachen manasa jitasuho. O king, whenever the yogi desires to leave this planet of human beings, he should not be perplexed about the proper time or place. One should comfortably sit without being disturbed, and regulating the life air should control the senses by the mind. Prabhupada Vishla Prabhupada ki jai. Prabhupada quotes 8.14 of the Bhagavad Gita, where it is clearly stated that a person who is totally engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord and who constantly remembers it in every step easily obtains the mercy of the Lord by entering into his personal contact. Such devotees do not need to seek an opportune moment to leave the present body. Those who are mixed devotees, alloyed with fruit of action or empirical philosophical speculation, require an opportune moment for quitting the body. For them, the opportune moments are stated in the Bhagavad Gita 8.23 to 26. But it is not important for a bhakti yogi to engage to understand this. Why? Because a bhakti yogi is always remembering Krishna, always engaged in the service of the Krishna. That is a way of remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 16. Manasvabuddhya malaya niyamya kshetrajna etam ninayetam atmani atmanam atmanya vrudya dhiro labdo pashantir viramet krityat. Thereafter, the yogi should merge his mind by his unalloyed intelligence into the living entity and then merge the living entity into the super self. And by doing this, the fully satisfied living entity becomes situated in the supreme stage of satisfaction so that he ceases from all other activities. In the purport, Prabhupada is talking about the functions of the mind being thinking, feeling, and willing. One should engage one's thinking, feeling, and willing in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By unalloyed intelligence, by unalloyed mind, the service has to be done to the Lord by remembering the Lord always. Krishna Mati Rastu. Always remember Krishna. Never forget Krishna. The living entity is directly seen by the Lord. The Lord dictates to him to act according to his desire. The living entity follows him perfectly. The living entity ceases to discharge any other duty for his illusory satisfaction. In his pure and unalloyed state, the living being attains the stage of full bliss, labdo pashanti, and ceases all material anchoring. Text 17. Nayatra kalo nimisha paraprabhu Koto nu deva jagatam ya ishire inayatra sattvam narajastamascha navai vikaro namahan pradhanam. In the transcendental state of labdo pashanti, there is no supremacy of wasting, devastating time, which controls even the celestial demigods or empowered rule over mundane creatures, nor is there influence of material goodness, passion, or ignorance. Prabhupada Vishla Prabhupada ki jai. Devastating time, which controls even the celestial demigods, the manifestations of past, present, and future, does not act on the transcendental plane. And Prabhupada talks about what about demigods like Indra, Chandra, Varuni, Agni, and all of them. Everybody is under the influence of the three modes of material nature. But Krishna says that Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabha. One who takes shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord easily transcends over the three modes of material nature. Text number 18. Param Padam Vaishnava Amanantyat यन्नेति नेति यतत् utiशिक्षवः विसृज्य दौरात्म्यमनन्य सौहृदा हृदोपगूयार्ह padam pade pade. The transcendentalists desire to avoid everything godless, for they know that supreme situation in which everything is related with the Supreme Lord Vishnu. Therefore, a pure devotee who is in absolute harmony with the Lord does not create perplexities, but worships the lotus feet of the Lord at every moment. The Bhagavad Gita Madhama is mentioned several times. And according to the version of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna, there exists the unlimited spiritual sky, wherein the planets are called Vaikunthas, or the abode of the personality of Godhead. Pure devotees of the Lord are absolutely in harmony with the personality of Godhead. Or in other words, you always think of the Lord as their only dependable friend and well-wisher. So, and Prabhupada talks about how, apart from the class of impersonalists who are non-devotees, there are also classes who oppose themselves as devotees of the Lord. But at the heart, they maintain the desire to become one with the impersonal Brahman. Right? But the pure devotees are those who want to eternally remain in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The devotee tries to engage everything in his service and does not create perplexities by falsely lording it over the creation of the Lord. In everything, the devotee sees the Lord and he sees everything in the Lord. The specific disturbance created by a duratma or crooked soul is due to his maintaining that the transcendental form of the Lord is something material. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the entire form of the Lord is completely spiritual. It cannot be understood by material imaginations. Text number 19. Itta munistu parame devastito vigyana digvirya surandita swaprashnina pidya kudam tato nilam stanishu satsunnamaye jitaklamah. With the strength of scientific knowledge, one should be well situated in absolute realization and thus be able to extinguish all material desires. One should then give up the material body by blocking the air hole with the heel of one's foot and by lifting the life air from one place to another in the 6 primary places. So, here the distinction, the details are given as to how one should leave one's body. However, for a devotee, one need not wait for an opportune moment, or one need not wait for a particular time or place or circumstance to give up the body. Because the devotee is always concentrating upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, chanting the holy names, one will definitely go back home, back to Godhead. Text number 20. Nabhyam sitam hrid adiropya tasmad udhan agatyorasitam nayen muni. ततो अनुसंधाय दिया मनस्वी स्वतालुमूलम shanakairnayet. The meditative devotee should slowly push up the life air from the navel to the heart, from there to the chest, and from there to the root of the palate. Should search out the proper places with intelligence. तस्माद् ध्रुवोरन्तरमुन्नयेत निरोढसप्तायतनो अनपेक्षः स्थित्वा मुहूर्तार्धम् अकुण्ठदृष्टिर्निर्भिद्य मूर्धान् विसृजेत् परं गतः. Thereafter, the bhakti yogi should push the life air up between the eyebrows, and then blocking the 7 outlets of the life air, should maintain his aim for going back home, back to Godhead. If he is completely free from all desires of material enjoyment, he should then reach the cerebral hole and give up his material connections, having gone to the Supreme. So, in the purport, Prabhupada mentions Bhagavad Gita 2.59 that it is said that this sort of material detachment is possible to attain when one is acquainted with the supreme association of life. Param drishtva nivartate. One cannot give up the lower taste unless one gets an understanding of a higher taste of spiritual life. Otherwise, it will become very, very difficult for someone to give up the lower taste. And we see how Arjuna also calls Krishna Param Brahma Parandam Pavitram Paramam Bhavan Purusham Shashvatam Divyam Adi Devam Ajam Vibhum. So, in this way, when one recognizes the Lord as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, recognizes oneself as a servant of the Lord, then one is properly situated in this position of devotional service. Yadi prayasyan nripavarameshtyam vaihayasanamut yadviharam ashtadipatyam gunasannivaye sahaiva gacchen manasendriyaischa. Text number 22, where Prabhupada is talking about what is the desire of a yogi. Right? The yogi wants to attain higher planetary systems, etc. But Prabhupada mentions in the purport how this Lagima Siddhi, Prapti Siddhi, Vashitva Siddhi, Kamaya Vashita Siddhi, Ishitva Siddhi, Prakamya Siddhi, to become bigger than the biggest, smaller than the smallest, to become lighter than the lightest, heavier than the heaviest. These are all desires of the yogis. But a bhakti yogi is only interested in serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead for his pleasure. Text number 23. Yogeshwaranam Gatirahurantar Mahi Srilokya Pavanantaratman Na Karmibhistam Gatimapnuvanti Vidya Tapa Yoga Samadhi Bhajam. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The transcendentalists are concerned with the spiritual body. As such, with the strength of their devotional service, austerities, mystic power, and transcendental knowledge, their movements are unrestricted within and beyond the material worlds. The fruit workers of the gross materialists can never move in such a unrestricted manner. So here talking about the power of the yogis, right? Durvasa Muni himself was on such a great mystic. They can move anywhere and everywhere, like Narada Muni also. He can travel anywhere. So the speed of the transcendentalists can never be attained by the gross of the subtle materialists. Text number 24. Vaishvanaram yati vihaya sagata shushumnaya brahma patena shochisa viduta kalko atahare rudastat prayati chakram nripashaishumaram. Okay, when such a mystic passes over the Milky Way by the illuminating Shushumna, reach the highest planet Brahmaloka, he goes first to Vaishvanara, the planet of the deity of fire. Wherein he becomes completely cleansed of all the contaminations, and thereafter he still goes higher. The cycle of Shushumara to relate with Lord Hari, the personality of Godhead. Prabhupada mentions how Milky Way in the sky is indicated herein as the way leading to Brahmaloka, highest planet of the universe. Tad Vishwanabhim Tvativartya Vishnur Ani Yashavirajena Namaskritam Brahmavidam Upaiti Kalpa Yusho Yad Vibudha Ramante. This Yishumara is a pivot for the turning of the complete universe. It is called the navel of Lord Vishnu, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. Yogi alone goes beyond the circle of Shishumara and attains the planet Maharloka. Their purified saints like Bhrigu enjoy duration of life of 4.3 million solar years. This planet is worshipable even for saints who are transcendentally situated. Atho anantasya mukhanalena dandahyamanam saniriksha vishwam Niryati Siddheshwara Yushtadishnyan Yadvai Paradhyam Taduparameshtyam. Translation purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The time of the final devastation of the complete universe, the end of the duration of Brahma's life, a flame of fire emanates from the mount of Ananta in the bottom of the universe. Yogi sees all the planets of the universe burning to ashes. As he leaves for Satyaloka by airplanes used by the great purified souls, the duration of life in Satyaloka is calculated to be 154.80 million years. The purport Prabhupada talks about the residents of the various planets like Maharlok, Tapolok, Brahmalok. They all have very, very high lifespan. But from the point of view of the Supreme Personality of Godhead's eternality, that also seems like a split second. However, Prabhupada says the modern scientists are conditioned souls, liable to make so many errors and mistakes. Therefore, the safe side is to accept the authentic version of Vedic literatures, like Srimad Bhagavatam, which is accepted unanimously by the great Acharyas. Text number 27. Nayatra shoko najarana mrityur nartir najodvega rute kutaschit yachit tatodha kripayanidam vidam duranta dukkha prabhavanu darshanat. In that planet of Satyaloka, there is neither bereavement nor old age nor death. There is no pain of any kind, and therefore there are no anxieties. Save that sometimes due to consciousness, there is a feeling of compassion for those unaware of the process of devotional service, but subjected to unsurpassable miseries in the material world. The Prabhupada talks about 4.2, that Lord Krishna affirmed the system of knowledge as explained in the Bhagavad Gita was explained to the sun god, and sun god banned disciplic succession to Manu, to King Ikshvaku, and thus a systemic distribution of knowledge happened down the line of great sages, one after another. Evam parampara praptam imam rajarshayo vidu. And later on, it's explained to Arjuna by Krishna because the system of knowledge was lost due to the course of time. Vedic knowledge is misinterpreted by those who are not qualified Brahmanas. Hence, one has to learn this Vedic science from the process of disciplic succession from a bona fide guru to the disciple. All the bona fide acharyas preach this truth of returning home back to Godhead and warn men not to make a false plan for happiness in a place where happiness is only a myth. Text number 28. Tato vishesham pratipatya nirbhayas tenatmanapo nalamurtiratvaran jyotirmayo vayupetya kale vayuvatmanakam vrihadatmalingam. After reaching Satyaloka, the devotee is specifically able to be incorporated fearlessly with a subtle body and identity similar to that of the gross body. One after another, he attains stages of existence from earthly to watery, fiery, glowing, and airy until he reaches the ethereal stage. The purport Prabhupada is talking about how one has attained the place by dint of Virat or Hiranyagarbha worship is liberated along with the liberation of Brahmaji. But one who attains the place by dint of devotional service is specifically mentioned here in relation to how we can penetrate into the different coverings of the universe and thus ultimately disclose a spiritual identity in the absolute atmosphere of supreme existence. As such, the watery covering mentioned here is considered to be the false egoistic covering of all living entities. The gradual process of liberation from material coverings, one after another, is a gradual process of being liberated from false egoistic conceptions of the material gross body, they being absorbed in the identification of the subtle body, till the attainment of the pure spiritual body in the absolute realm of the kingdom of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. So this is the highest perfection of human life. That is to get either the Sayujya Mukti or Sarupya Mukti or Salokya Mukti. But more important, Prabhupada mentions, is one should also have the opportunity to render devotional service. Otherwise, a devotee even rejects Sarupya, Salokya, Samipya and Sarshri kind of Mukti. Text number 29. Granena gandham rasanena vairasam rupam chidrishtya shvasanam tvachaiva shrotrena chopeti navo gunatvam pranena chakutim upaiti yogi. The devotee that surpasses the subtle objects of different senses like aroma by smelling, the palate by tasting, vision by seeing forms, touch by contacting, the vibrations of the ear by ethereal identification, and the sense organs by material activities. In the purport, Prabhupada is talking about how the various coverings are there, and the pure spiritual spark, the living entity, becomes completely cleansed of contamination to become eligible to enter into the kingdom of God. Text number 30. Sabhuta sukshmendriya sannikarsham manomayam devamayam vikaryam samsadyagatya sahatena yati vijnana tattvam guna sannirodham. Devotee, the surpassing the gross and subtle forms of coverings, enters the plane of egoism. And in that state, he merges the material modes of nature, ignorance and passion, this point of neutralization, and thus reaches egoism and goodness. After this, all egoism is merged in the Mahatattva, and he comes to the point of pure self-realization. Prabhupada mentions pure self-realization is a pure consciousness of admitting oneself to be an eternal servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. The mind belongs to the mode of goodness and therefore is called Deva Maya or godly. Perfect purification of the mind is made possible when one is fixed in the conviction of being the eternal servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, simple attainment of goodness is also material mode. One has to come to the state of Vasudeva Sattva. Vasudeva Sattva helps one to enter into the kingdom of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. Now, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made it easier for the prospective devotee of the present age in the following specific manner. There is no difference in the result. The first and foremost point is that one must understand the prime importance of Bhakti Yoga. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recommends the devotee sow the seed of Bhakti Yoga in the heart and nurture it by the watering of hearing and chanting the holy name, fame, etc. of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And also talks about the 3 stages of chanting, namely offensive chanting and the shadow chanting and the chanting in pure goodness. And the 10 offenses to be avoided while chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra also detailed in this purport by Srila Prabhupada. Text number 31. Tena atmanatmanam upaiti shantam anandamayo vashane etam gatim bhagavatim gatoya savai punarneha dusajjate anga. Only the purified soul can attain the perfection of associating with the Supreme Personality of Godhead in complete bliss and satisfaction in his constitutional state. Having attained this Supreme Lord, he never returns back to this material world. And Prabhupada mentions in the purport how the impersonalists who aspire to merge the impersonal Brahmajyoti effulgence of the Lord cannot render devotional service under the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hence, one has to have come under the guidance of a pure devotee of the Lord to be attracted to the process of devotional service under the Supreme Lord. In Bhagavad Gita 8.15, the same thing is confirmed. The great Mahatmas or the Bhakti Yogis, after attaining an association, never come back to this material world, which is full of miseries and which is impermanent. Attainment of love of Godhead means complete freedom from all other attractions. The conditioned soul has many aspirations to become a religious man, a rich man, a first-class enjoyer, etc. But one who is a pure devotee of the Lord, who attains the stage of love of Godhead, has only this desire to serve the devotee's lovable object, namely the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. Text number 32. Ete Shruti te Nripaveda Gite Tvaya Bripshte Sanatane cha Evai Pura Brahmana Tushta Aradhito Bhagavan Vasudeva. Your Majesty Maharaja Parikshit, know that all that I have described in reply to your proper inquiry is just according to the version of the Vedas, and it is eternal truth. This was described personally by Lord Krishna unto Brahma, with whom the Lord was satisfied upon being properly worshipped. And this the knowledge of disciplics and knowledge of Bhagavad Gita is given in the disciplic succession. First, it was given by Lord Krishna to Brahma, Brahma to Narada, Narada to Vyasadeva, Vyasadeva to Shukadeva Goswami, and so on. So, there's no difference between the versions of all the authorities. And Prabhupada also mentions how we repeat the same fact which is actually told by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita, the same process of understanding the Gita stated in the 4th chapter, but does not follow the authoritative version of the Acharyas. He will vainly search after the truth mentioned in the Vedas. Text 33. Nahi ato anya shiva pantha vishata samshrita viha Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Yato Bhavet. For those who are wandering in the material universe, there is no more auspicious means of deliverance than what is aimed as in the direct devotional service of Lord Krishna. So Brahmandi Brahmite Gono Bhagyavan Jiva, Guru Krishna Prasadi Paya Bhaktilata Bija. Some or the other, we've got in the process of bhakti with the causeless mercy of Guru and Gauranga. Hence, we need to practice devotional service with utmost sincerity. Text 34. Bhagavan Brahma Kartsnena Triranviksha Manisha Tat Adyavisyat Utasto Ratir Atmanyato Bhavet. The great personality Brahma, with great attention and concentration of the mind, studied the Vedas. And after scrutinizingly examining them, he ascertained that attraction for the Supreme Lord is the highest perfection of religion. So if one is attracted to the Lord, then one automatically loses or develops distaste for everything else except the Lord. Text 35. Bhagavan sarva bhuteshu lakshita swatmana harihi drishyer buddhyadibir drashta lakshaner anupamakai. The personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, is in every living being, along with the individual soul. And this fact is perceived and hypothesized in our acts of seeing and taking help from the intelligence. In the purport, Prabhupada is actually talking about how in every living being, the Lord is personally present as Paramatma, whether in the body of a pig or an ant or a bird or a beast or a human being. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna, is present as the Super Soul. Upadrashta Anumanta Cha Bharta Bhokta Maheshwara. He is situated in the heart of every living entity as a witness and is also the permitter of the various activities of the living entity. Text 36. Tasmat Sarvatmana Rajan Hari Sarvatra Sarvadha Shrotavya Ketitavyascha Smartavyo Bhagavan Ranam. O King, it is therefore essential that every human being hear about, glorify, and remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead always and everywhere. In the purport, Prabhupada is actually talking about the four important limbs or angas of bhakti, namely worshipping, praying, rendering service and love, becoming friendly to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. And simply by hearing scriptures like Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, one may develop love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. The word cha includes all the remaining processes or methods of bhakti yoga as mentioned above. Text 37. Pibanti Bhagavata Atmana Satam Katamratam Shravana Puteshu Sambritam Punanti te Vishaya Vidushitashayam Varjanti Tacharana Saro Ruhantikam. Those who drink through oral reception, fully filled with the nectarian message of Lord Krishna, the beloved of the devotees, purify the polluted aim of life known as material enjoyment. Thus go back to Godhead, the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. In the purport, it is mentioned how the various human necessities of life are fully supplied by the Lord in the shape of food, grains, milk, fruit, wood, stone, sugar, silk, jewels, cotton, salt, vegetables, etc. in sufficient quantity to feed and care for the human service of the human race of the world, as well as the living beings in each and every planet within the universe. It is suggested here by Shukadeva Goswami, sufficiently hearing Srimad Bhagavatam is the most essential factor in this age of Kali. In the age of Kali, where people have lost their perfect vision of life, this Srimad Bhagavatam is a torchlight by which to see the real path. Jiva Goswami Prabhupada has commented on the Kathamritam mentioned in this verse and indicated Srimad Bhagavatam to be the nectarian message of the personality of Godhead. With sufficient hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam, the polluted aim of life, namely lording into our matter, will subside, and people in general in all parts of the world will be able to live a peaceful life of knowledge and bliss. Thus, with the process of Bhakti Yoga directly accepted, as suggested in this verse, with sufficient hearing of the transcendental message of the Lord, the material contamination is directly eliminated without once even having to contemplate on the Virat conception of the Lord. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the second canto, second chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Lord in the Heart. So the Lord is situated in the heart, as Kshirodika Sai Vishnu, and he is the permitter, and he is the sanctioner, and he is a witness of all the activities performed by the living entity. And in 12.5, just like Lord Krishna says, Klesho adhikatarastesham avyakta asakta chetasam avyakta hi gatir dukkham dehavadbhiravapyate. So those who follow the impersonal path is very, very difficult. And then Krishna says, Mayeva mana adatsva mayi buddhim nivesha nivasishyasi mayeva ata urdhvam na samshayah. One can immediately come back to me without a doubt, one who engages in the process of devotional service. With this, we end canto number 2, chapter number 2, containing 37 verses in the matter of the Lord being situated as Paramatma in our heart. Hare Krishna. Then